to make it.
Okay.
That's correct, Mayor. He can't make it today, he said.
Yeah. So hopefully council members Shade and Waring can join us shortly. Okay, so with that being said, I think we'll go ahead and get started and ask you to join me, please, in just a moment of reflection for the future of our city. Amen. Thank you. So I think, as usual, this is Ms. Wharton's show, so to speak. I must, before we start, thank her again for taking the time to give us that presentation at council the other night about the effect of reassessment on property taxes, a very complicated matter to explain. And I think as everyone saw, it is complicated and has a lot of factors involved when the city has that happen every 5 years. So thank you, Amy. You did a great job on that. And without further ado, if you want to start on our 2021 budget revenue estimates, that would be great.
Okay. So right now for general fund, this is what we have as we included several columns here just to kind of let you compare to 2020, what was approved, and then the amended budget that we just took this week to show you where we were with that, and then what we're projecting for 21 and the change from 2020. So as you can see, revenues are $11.7 million less than they were for 2020. So I just want to stress, we're cutting expenses and doing everything that we can, but this is really for us in 2021. It's a revenue problem for us more than anything else. So I don't know if you have any questions. I was going to go through just the major general fund revenues, kind of what our projections, how we came up with the projections, all of that for property taxes, licenses, and permits and fees. But if you need any other detail, just let me know and I can get it to you. Revenues for enterprise funds, parking's our biggest issue there, and with $9.8 million projected in less revenue than 2020. So total revenues is $21.4 million less than what we had originally approved in 2020. So like I said, it's our biggest issue is it's a revenue problem for us. Do you have any questions on that?
So if I may, Amy, just ask you to go back already to the first screen.
Please.
I know we've talked about this issue before, but I just think it's worthy of note because, substantially most of the difference is in business licenses. And that's a huge impact. And I know most of that is based on a projection. And it's kind of interesting that the amended 2020 is more than what we had originally approved. So we had a good business license year this year. Of course, that's based on last year's business revenues, so that's why. But if you don't mind just elaborating on that a little bit and the estimates or how you arrived at that 27 million figure.
So later on, Mayor, I have some how we came up with some of the projections. If you let me just go forward a little bit and I'll show you.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure you covered that point. And then the other one that's obviously standing out on this page is the parking.
Right.
Right.
So just to let you know, we are looking at, now that we see the other issue for us is because things have been so volatile, it's just every month of data that we get helps us a little bit more. So we're looking at these revenue numbers all the time, our projections, and adjusting where we can. So we're looking at business licenses, and around 2 o'clock today, Joshua and Jolene have been looking at those because we had code enforcement officers out looking at businesses and inspecting businesses to kind of see where we are. In those projected numbers, we had anticipated some businesses closing and everything. So the more data that we get in, the better we are. So I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go forward. Local option sales tax, really, like I said, that doesn't do much for us because we give 100% back anyway. Permits and fees, and we're looking at our projections for parking as well, because I think we may be being a little bit too conservative with parking now that we have another month's worth of data. So we're looking at all of these still. But the assumptions that we have for property taxes, it's the 74.3 mils as we determined for our 2020 reassessment rollback calculation that I talked about so much the other night. So, and then the tax credit factor, obviously, we actually had to reduce that a little bit more for 21, just based on our local option sales tax revenue projection numbers. So there won't be as much of a credit in 2021. The growth rates that we used for was 2% for vehicles and 3% for property. And Berkeley County, for some reason, we saw a decline in vehicles. So we used a 0% growth rate for vehicles and 5% for property. So that's about a $4.88 million estimate over 2020. And then Councilmember Waring had asked us, go ahead.
Amy, I just had a quick question about assumptions going into the property tax revenue side. Is there any concern that there could be some property tax, I guess, defaults this year that we would not anticipate seeing? I know that property taxes are typically one of the most steady types of revenue you're going to find because people don't want to lose their property. But, you know, I've heard sort of anecdotally that, you know, some folks are worried about some huge property tax bills coming due, and especially for certain businesses that may be, you know, sucking wind right now. Is there any thought about some potential, strange things happening in the property tax side this year?
There could be. We usually get our collection rate from the county, and I don't know if Kathy, you can answer this or not, if you adjusted for that at all in your estimate for 21, if you took, I'm not sure. I know that we thought about that, but I'm not sure what we did with the collection rate.
I did not lower the collection rate any. I used what the county provided to us as their historical collection rate, probably based on 2019 collections. But I did try to keep, you know, the growth rate low. So hopefully, I mean, you know, the collection rate is I guess we wait and see how 2020 comes in, but that would be too late to adjust this.
Yeah, so with the growth rate, we were super conservative with the growth rate without taking into consideration the collection rate for right now, if that makes sense. So this might help a little bit too, because Councilmember Waring had asked, because he was confused somewhat about the changes in revenue over the past few years with growth and all that. So we put this together to kind of show, you know, each year from 17 to 18, we had a $5.5 million increase in revenue. And then you'll see from 20 to 21, it's 9.3, but you have to take into consideration the local option sales tax, and then also our TIF districts that come out. And you'll see in 21, the amount of revenue coming out for TIF districts has grown a lot. It's almost $6.4 million. So that all goes away from the general fund. So TIF districts are great, but it also hurts the general fund in the long run as well. So when you're looking at if you think it doesn't make sense in the amount that we're increasing taxes, sometimes this is why. You know, we have to take into consideration local option sales tax, and then also the TIF districts as well. So I don't know if this helps or hinders, but we also included the assessed values for each year, so you can see how they've grown. And then in 19, you'll see what the growth assessment was and just straight reassessment for the assessed values. Does that help at all? Yes. Okay. I know Councilmember Waring wanted to see that, so I will send that to him separately. And then business license, I had sent you this spreadsheet the other day, and how they had come up with the reductions by industry, just based on how much they have been closed during the pandemic. And then also taking into consideration, like I said, businesses closing down. I think I've mentioned before too, we do see a lot of businesses close, but the new businesses open up. And that's where we're seeing the difference now, is where new businesses aren't coming online as much as they were before, that kind of counteracted other businesses closing. So that's where the $9.6 million reduction comes from. But like I said, they had called me this afternoon and they feel like we could probably increase our original projection by 3 to 4 million. So that will help a little bit with our $18 million deficit that we're showing right now, which I'll show you later. And then I know you, Councilman Rashid, you had asked for it by district. And that's a little bit more difficult than we thought it was going to be, but they're working on it. So we should have that information within the next, I don't know, week or so. Permits and fees, it's not big dollars anyway, but you know, we're seeing obviously decreases in Uber and Lyft. You know, our court, we're not sure. So we worked a lot with the court on this, and we feel like it's not a big reduction, but it's still somewhat of a reduction. Medallion fees obviously will be down because of tourism. And we had, you know, you read the expected recession and everything else, that we reduced building permits by some as well. And then tourism, obviously, we're seeing a big reduction in that as well for next year.
Hey, Amy.
Yes.
The other question I had, if you can't do it by district, I thought we also talked about whether or not it was Peninsula versus West Ashley difference as well. If that
Yeah,
could be,
we talked about it by area as well.
By
I
area.
don't know what they've decided. When they talked to me about it, they are trying to do it by district. So hopefully we'll have that. We got a large data dump from IT. And so they're kind of having to cull through it and organize it in a good way. It's just taking a little bit more time than we thought.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so our expenditures right now budgeted. Wanted to show you the base budget that we had. This is the general fund. And then we asked the departments, we went back and asked them to reduce. So that's the reduction that they had come up with. We told you that we were going back through it and we were going to cut more. So we have cut 4.4 million, but I just want to caveat, it's a big number. A lot of that is salary savings and fuel savings that we calculated in addition. And then we had some high priority requests from the departments that we looked through that we really feel like we need to do. Of course, we can look back through those and cut some of those out, but I don't know. There's some things that I feel like we need to do. So our total is almost 205 million. Enterprise fund is 29 million. We see the department cuts and then we cut more, and then just a little bit in high priority requests that we added back. So it's almost $30 million for enterprise funds. So this is the preliminary draft budget as it stands right now for the general fund. We're at 183 million for revenues, almost 205 for expenditures, and that's a $21 million deficit. Enterprise funds, 33.2 million in revenues, 29.8 in expenditures. I didn't talk about parking, did I? Parking revenues. So we're going back through that. We think that we can probably adjust those numbers, but it won't be a big number added back to the revenue projection that we have now. ABM did a really good job, and they looked at it and they were probably more conservative than we are. So we're just kind of, now that we have September in, going back through to decide exactly how we do that. It might be maybe $500,000 more that we can add to that, but we're still looking at that, just to let you know. So that would change this number a little bit to almost 3.8 revenue over expenditures. And there's some other things that we can do. We haven't had salary savings taken from enterprise funds, which we could do, which would reduce the expenditures a little bit. That would give us more of a surplus. So there's a little bit of things that we can do in the enterprise funds still. And then, so right now, citywide revenue over expenses is $18 million negative.
But that did not include the adjustment you just mentioned about the business licenses of
Right.
3 to 4 million.
So that would be 16, probably, well, I'm sorry, 14 million. maybe 13 million, probably,
Right.
with the
Right.
adjustments that we do.
14.
And
Yeah.
then with parking, if we do something with parking and enterprise funds, it would probably be close to a $13 million deficit.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So what do we do with an $18 million deficit now that it's almost probably 14 million, let's say? We feel like we've gone through the department budgets and cut as much as we can without major impacts to service levels. Like I said, this is more a revenue problem than it is an expense problem. So, but obviously we need to make bigger decisions. So what can we do? You know, revenue increases, taxes, or local option sales tax. Local option sales tax, we've talked about a lot, not giving 100% back. If we kept 25% of the revenue and rolled back 75%, that would produce $2 million more in revenue. Sorry. If we kept 50% and rolled back 50%, that would be $4.1 million additional revenue, just to give you some context. Expenditure reductions, you know, service level cuts, maintain our parks and rides away. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Amy, but
Okay.
as we continue to evaluate these options, I think that especially for the local option sales tax credit, are being able to kind of quantify these various options in terms of the average property tax increase for, say, somebody with a $300,000 home in the city of Charleston, I think will make, from a communication standpoint, the evaluation of these options just a little bit easier. And I volunteer Councilmember Shea to perform that math.
Are you seeing?
I got it. No problem.
Do you see a different screen right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so hold on one second. I'm gonna hide. I want to show you, because we've done that before. I've shown it to you on a separate, sorry,
Discussion.
I'm trying to hide these columns. Hold on one second.
Awesome.
So this would be,
Oh, great. Look at that. You had it already.
yeah, so right here, 75%. So, or 50 for Charleston County, their tax bill will go from $696.60. Of course, this might be with, no, it's with our new millage rate. Okay. To $74 or $741.60. So that would be the increase. And then for Berkeley County, $793.20 to $814.80, depending on which one. 75% would be this column here.
Very helpful. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So that'd be a good thing to share with everyone. And Amy, wouldn't it be true, like if we made a decision to keep a portion of the LOST, that it would impact the property tax bill that folks would get next fall?
Right. 2021, October of 2021.
So the decision that got made recently on our rollback, it finalized the county's ability to go ahead and issue the property tax bills for this year. So that's already set with our rollback and a full 100% return of the LOST.
That's right.
And so I just wanted to make that clear that as we deliberate that decision, our citizens will actually see it a year from now.
Right. So then, like expenditure reductions, service level cuts, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just picking up where the mayor just left off on that. So, which makes perfect sense. It comes back to the 2021 taxes. If there is a goal falls out of the sky or our revenue somehow just mysteriously pick up, can we reverse course on doing that?
Probably. So we don't set the millage. So this was another thing that's confusing with millage. So when we do the budget, like right now we're doing the budget for the property, for what we'll budget for property taxes for 2021. And we're doing it based on a millage that we intend to set next year. We won't actually set the millage until September of next year.
Of
So that's
2021.
another thing, Councilmember Jackson, we were talking the other, that's why every year we just do this. Every single year we set the millage rate. Normally we won't have to change it because we know what we budgeted and it stays the same. If we didn't have a reassessment year, if we would have increased millage, we would have had to come to you to pass that because that would have been a change. But so this year, I mean, that was the whole thing about what was so confusing about this is we do this every single year. We just set the millage, send it to the county, we move on. So Councilmember Shea, to answer your question, we would budget at a certain millage rate and a certain local option sales tax rate, but we won't actually set that until next year. But if we
It's
were to
more-
make a major change, then we probably would have to come to all of you to have that approved.
So that's a
Okay,
good point, council member. And let me just put the scenario out there that, we've been waiting around for another CARES Act to give some relief directly to local government such as ourselves. And I don't think it's going to get done before the election now, but I think, it will still finally get done. And hopefully it get done before we have to pass the budget. But if it doesn't, and for example, you said, okay, we're going to use some of the local option sales tax, and then we got some direct relief from the federal government next year prior to September, we could always reinstate that full refund of the LOST later.
Right, but see, so we have an ordinance right now that says that we're giving 100% back. So we'd have to change that ordinance this year for the budget for 2021. So then if we were to make a change, we'd have to take the ordinance back then as well to change it back again. So it's kind of, a lot of, and our
Amy?
timing, yes, our timing is not, is really a short window of time by the time we get everything we need from the county in order to turn that millage information back around. So we'd have to
Amy,
figure that out. Yes.
what percentage of the local option sales tax do we have to give back?
So there's two funds and there's that crazy calculation. There's a rollback fund and there's the revenue fund. So the rollback fund we have to give back. The revenue fund is what we can keep.
So we could keep 100% of the revenue fund.
You could, but you need to be a little bit careful with that because you don't ever want to get in a situation where you're paying more back than what you collect.
Okay.
And with everything being so volatile right now, that's why we did it at 25 and 50%, just to kind of give us a little bit of a cushion.
So Amy, if we're going to decide that, because we have to do a new ordinance, we would really need to have that on the council agenda for the first meeting of November, right?
Not necessarily. We could do it. Well, it probably would be better to do it that way, yes. Because if we're going to build it into the budget that way, then we need to know that it's going to pass. But otherwise, it could just go with the budget. But then if it didn't pass, then we'd be doing another budget last minute again.
Right. So we still have a few weeks to decide this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to get the budget to you, I think by November 13th. So the draft budget to you, or I would like to get it to you by the 13th. I think it's the 17th or something like that we have to have it to you by.
Well, for the record, I'd like to keep it on the table, Mayor. I know that, traditionally, we're very proud and happy that we always give back 100%. I do think that if people were going to feel it in their tax bills this year, that would be a whole different decision. But, we're all hoping for the economy to go back to where it came from by the end of next year. And that's really where people would be then, seeing a small increase in their tax bill. So I'm not ready to vote on it. I don't think you're asking us that, but just speaking for myself, I think we should keep it on the list. If we can't figure out how to save 13 million from other ways.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think we need to leave all options on the table right now. That's for sure.
Okay, so expenditure reductions. service level cuts, maintaining our parks and rights away, if we cut back on how often we do that, facilities maintenance, which we don't really want to do because we're already in a deferred maintenance situation as it is, but that's another option. Recreation programs, looking at things that aren't necessarily core services. We reduce hours at our facilities, furloughs. So 40 hours would save 2.2 million, 80 hours would save 4.4. HR right now is looking at an early retirement option as well. We thought about this earlier. We didn't think it would really be very advantageous to do it because it's so expensive now, but there's other ways we could structure it. So that is another option that they're looking at as well. And then the question to you would be, what would you like to see from us in helping make some of these decisions? What other information can we provide or detail can we provide to you for that?
I mean, you gave us a list of functions on the screen right before this. Do you have ballpark, estimates in terms of what the savings would be if we minimize the right-of-way maintenance for a year? Just to give us an idea of what kind of savings we'd be thinking about.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do all of that. We've talked with Lori a lot and Jason. We've talked with Jason before about in terms of a lot of the parks, the professional services contracts detail that I sent you before. You see that
Yes.
That's a lot of parks. There's a lot of contractual services for parks. So we had talked to him before about thinking about where he might be able to cut back on some of that because most of those contracts do not exceed contracts. So he was going to be looking at that for us as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that would be helpful to have ballpark next to each one of those, possible ideas.
Okay. So we'll have for the next meeting, we'll have some of those numbers for you as well as some recreation numbers and some other scenarios that we could do. I think we meet on the 29th. We have a full council budget workshop, I think on the 27th, and then another ad hoc on the 29th, unless you want to meet before then. We could set something up, but that's really where we are right now. We'll have better, we'll add the business license information and look at enterprise funds a little bit more as well. And then we have a few outstanding items. Property insurance. We've been having a little bit of a hard time getting final numbers for that. I expect them by Monday at the latest, but that will go up a little bit for sure. And then we need to add something for the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation. I will be meeting with her because I know the committee's meeting, so I just wanted to get a good idea of what we might need to budget for next year. And then right now, I think we just received some proposals in for the West Ashley Johns Island garbage contract, so I would expect some increases there as well, which will send us all in the wrong direction, but it is what it is.
The insurance category is property insurance, or
Yeah. That's right, property insurance. We already, healthcare is done. We brought that, you all approved that, so we're good there. Is there anything else? I think that's really all I had. We still have a lot of work to do, but we need to get it nailed down here pretty quick within the next couple of weeks. So,
Amy, those are all very good numbers that you showed us. And I appreciate how you broke that down for us. In simplistic terms, the greatest loss of revenue is between parking and business licenses. Is that sort of a quick summation?
mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because, and I'm being very optimistic when I pose this question, probably not realistic, but optimistic. So if things turn around and we're back to sometime in 2021 to where pre-COVID, those numbers could change dramatically.
Not for business licenses, because it's always based on their revenue from the year before. So it would be based on their 2020 income. So it would help us in 21. If they have a good year in 2021, then our 2022 year will be better.
And that's a really good point to remind us about. We're pretty much going to be stacked
Mhm.
regardless of how good of a 2021 could possibly turn out to be. We have this turnaround that's going to benefit us in 2022, not 2021.
That's right. And, you know,
Maybe, I mean,
so-
maybe parking revenue goes up significantly, but not enough of a level, even close enough of a level to shorten that budget.
yeah. So, and that's why I'm saying this isn't going to be just a 2020, 2021 problem. It will probably be a 22 problem as well. I mean, it's going to take us a little bit to come back. So whatever we can do, I mean, it's just going to be a rough ride for a few years. Hopefully everything will come back.
Yep. And thank you I think that's a good summary as to the regardless, the reality is reality on this thing.
Mhm.
And that's the reality. Thank you, Amy.
Sure. Is there anything else I didn't mean to go this fast. I didn't think we'd be this fast. So
You talk fast regardless. It doesn't matter.
I do. I know I do. I try. I get in trouble a lot. I'm told to slow down a lot.
She don't mess around.
No, I
No, she's done. Not
gotta
Amy,
get
she's
stuff done. There's too much to do. Anyway,
I see Councilmember Shealy has joined us. Councilmember Shealy, do you have any questions or comments? I don't know. I didn't see you till a few minutes ago. He's on mute, so maybe
Can you
he's.
stop sharing your screen, maybe, Amy, and then we can all see each other, please?
sure. Sorry. Oops. There you go.
So we use some of our reserve in our budget amendment, right, for 2020 that we just modified,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
And based upon what you're projecting right now, what kind of percentage reserve are we left with, or do you know? And would that be a possibility, if we get down to the last couple of million, so to speak, to be able to utilize some of that?
We could use, so we have a little bit of a cushion over our 20% still. I kind of made sure that we had that just in case. So we could use a small amount of that as long as it doesn't put us below our 20%.
Right.
I just have to calculate out exactly how much that would be for
Right.
us. But yeah, you could use a small amount as long as it didn't put us below. And we
Right.
probably should leave a little bit extra in there as well, because we don't know what will happen.
Right, and I agree with all you just said. But, short of cutting the services, that we're not left with a lot of options here,
Mhm. No, but that's why, I can make sure we had some more cushion in the general fund, in our general fund reserves, so.
And this is with no cost of COL, cost of living adjustment for our
That's right.
employees, correct?
That's right.
So this is just all salaries remaining where they are,
That's right.
which, we were still working on catching up with,
Mhm.
particularly our lower paid employees. We've made real progress over the last few years. And I hate to not be able to continue that, to be honest with you.
Me too.
So, at the same time, we even though we just rolled back our operating millage by 5 point something mils, based on the reassessment, most folks have seen an increase in their property value. So we want to try to avoid a millage increase. All the jurisdictions are not going to be able to do that. I know Mount Pleasant has already, approved an increase in their millage rate. So I would just say, I think we're going to have to look at using that a portion of that local option sales tax if we did so, I would do it on the provision that if our audit was kind to us by midsummer, or if the federal government finally came to our rescue with some dollars, that in either occasion that we would, before September, when we have to give the official notice to the county, that we agree that kind of be first up to credit back or to give back to in the event we have a better reserve for 2020 or get some federal help.
So you can't use reserves for ongoing sorts of, we wouldn't be able to adjust that because of our reserves, because it would hurt us again in the next year, if that makes sense. So you would end up having to use reserve like every single year unless you increase the budget again for the next year. I wouldn't do it based on reserves is what I'm saying.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Well, you could base it on the CARES Act, though. I mean, say if we picked up that 4.1 million by using 50% of the LOST, and then we just agree in advance that, gee, if we're blessed to get 4.1 million back, or kind of bonus revenue from the federal government, that the first 4.1 million that comes in the door, we're going to restore the LOST, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
You could, but then you need to think about the next year. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's a one-time, we get this money one time in 2021, but what about 2022?
Well,
2022, you hope some of the revenues go up, I guess. And at least the CARES Act, with the HEROES Act, was a 2-year act. It was this fiscal year and next fiscal year. So, that might happen as well.
I think what I hear you saying, Mayor, is that, we would be on our honor to do our best to give back to the taxpayers what they normally expect. Or, I mean, they don't expect it because the formulas are so complicated. Nobody really knows where their actual tax bills are generated or how they're generated. But I think it's correct of us to make that the aspiration, that we would try and make up for that difference if we have other sources of revenue. I mean, we might need to be, reinstating employees off of furlough, or, going back.
First thing would be paying back fund balances.
Yeah, so I don't think we should tie ourselves down to how we would use the CARES Act money until we have that bird in the hand.
Right. Councilmember Shade?
Amy, on the local sales option tax, can we split this refund to just between residential versus commercial, non-residential property? It has to be across the board as to all, right?
That's right.
I mean, you can't make a distinction between those who get a 4% versus those who get a 6%.
No.
Rate.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So, Councilmember Waring, in a nutshell, with our current revenue projections, we're out about $13 to $14 million. Not a lot of opportunities to make that up, other than considering a tax increase, use of the local option sales tax, a furlough of employees, or digging back down and cutting services to reduce expenses further.
Yeah, well, we said earlier, I know I did, and we discussed it. I think the lost revenue, we do have to look at it this time. And I heard the comments. I think whatever motion, when we do get to the point of making a motion, I think the CARES Act and all should be a part of that motion, should it carry. because you're right, if the federal government does come through with something for local governments, that should be restored. Amy, when it comes to, it's still shooting in the dark, but when it comes to, that piece with the medical benefits piece that in particular for those that are 65 and beyond, in particular with the city supplements for dependent costs. I don't know how many people are in that category. I'm not looking for an answer now, but that's something that I still think we need to get, because I think the city is pretty gracious in what we supplement to pay for dependents of people who could be on. I don't mean employees, but I'm talking about their dependents who could be on Medicare, that because our benefits are pretty good, they choose not to be on Medicare. I use myself as an example. I'm 65, and so is my wife. My wife is covered on the plan. The city supplements my wife's medical costs, and it's a pretty good benefit. I think we need to see how many people we're doing that for, and quite frankly, we got to keep benefits for the employees, but when people have a choice, then they need to make a decision. In other words, my wife and I need to make a decision as to her benefits, because there is a plan B, a viable plan B at lower costs. And so I don't know how many how many people we have in that category, but it'd be pretty easy to figure that out. I don't know whether we can scrape up $1 million that way or not, but we down to looking on the rocks. I did also make mention, I don't know, it was a conversation, but I don't know how many consultants we got on payroll, but I really do believe, not that they're not needed, but I think we can kick that down the road for another 6 months or so into the fiscal year, if not longer, because if we're going to look at potentially, and I know it's a thought, we hadn't gotten there yet, and I know it's the last option, but if we're going to look at furloughing people, I do believe some of the consultancies can be delayed. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 we have to keep on, but some of this we need to keep on. So how much money can we, save from that way? I don't know if we can scrape up another $500,000 to $1 million on that.
I sent you the spreadsheet that you all asked for. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at that yet, but that was also something
I haven't. I have to be, the day of, anybody that files an extension, just like CPAs and accountants have a rough time, April 15th and September 15th and October 15th, financial advisors have a rough time with their clients needing information at the last minute to file their tax return. So after the date, I'm going to be a free man again at October 15th.
So that's one of the other things we talked about in terms of service level cuts, in terms of, parks has a lot of contracts for maintaining parks and rights of way and things like that.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So those are all included in that contract in that spreadsheet that I sent you as well.
All right, good, because you mentioned maintenance and things like that. Just like, we have a number of properties. People usually cut the grass twice a week. Already cut the grass is not growing, so now we cut them back to once a month.
Yeah.
I don't know. City does something similar. So, there's not any one area that I think we're gonna find, $10 or $12 million, but we may be able to find,
And that's what I was saying, that this is a revenue problem for us more than an expenditure.
Right.
We've cut back a lot, and I said I don't know that we could cut back any more than we have without impacting services significantly. So it's just a revenue problem for us this year, which
it is.
a problem. Usually it's an expenditure problem for us, and it flip-flopped on us for this year.
It is, and I tell you what, you really see the efficiencies in government. This isn't a situation where money's being wasted or squandered, anything like that. It is a revenue problem. So, and believe it or not, that's a good thing. Suppose we had a problem because of malfeasance or mismanagement. This is not the case at all. So anyway, when do we have the next meeting? I guess we
It is the 29th. We have a full
All right.
council meeting on the 27th, and the next ad hoc is the 29th, unless y'all want to meet earlier, like next week. You think we need to meet twice?
So as CFO, what are the hard choices that are on the 13 people that get to vote on this upcoming budget? In other words, what are the hard choices that we need to consider? If you list the 3 or 4 bullet points, what are they from the expense side? In other words, we have to decide on one,
Well, I
two.
think the revenue side is hard too, because it'll affect property taxes. I mean, that's really where it will be, but also for expenses, furloughs or layoffs for employees would be the number one thing that would be hard. How much we cut back services, which, could mean laying off employees too. If we're just looking at core services and we give up some of the programs that we provide, it will affect our employees too. So to me, those are the hardest decisions that we need to make. Furloughs,
How many
bothers
parts?
me because we're not giving COLA, our health care increased. And so furloughing our employees as well that's the hardest. I think that's the hardest decision for me anyway.
Do we have many part-time employees? Okay. All right. I'll circle back on that.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments at this time? All right, well,
Do
thank
you all
you.
want me to send you this presentation too?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Yeah.
Do
please.
you want me to
That's
send you
always
the
a-
one I did the other night as well for the property
That'd be
taxes?
good.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
Thank
so we can send it on to people who ask us questions. That'd be great.
I don't know that they'll be able to really understand it, but I'll.
I'm going to send it out and say there'll be a quiz. So, Amy, I was thinking, can I make one more suggestion, please?
Sure.
I know that the numbers are, probably not that helpful from the 2020 budget, especially the one that's published in its beautiful format and everything. But in terms of getting the whole picture about the city and its functions and the different departments and the, sub areas of the departments, could you send us that as a PDF or a link to a PDF? I tried getting on the city's website the other day and scrolling through it myself, and I was just sort of driving myself crazy. So I'd like to be able to get a document that I can print out a few pages at a time.
You want the 2020 draft budget, original draft budget?
I mean, however you could send that, it would be a useful document to be able to, see the big picture of the departments, but also drill down into the functions of different departments.
Okay, you were breaking up a little bit. I didn't hear if you wanted 2020 or if you want what we have for 2021 so far. 2021 would be a little bit harder, but I can send you 2020. So
Yeah,
I didn't know
2020 is fine. I'm personally asking because I'm not going to look at the numbers represented in 2020 as much as the functions that the city performs within its budget. So.
Okay. All right. Let me think about that and I'll get some. Does everybody want that?
I think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Let us think
Amy,
about the best way to send that to you.
Amy, I have one other question. When we had a special meeting on the smokestack, I don't know, a few days back,
Mhm.
one of the discussions came up was, let's just say I work for stormwater and I am over cleaning out the ditches and whatever in a TIF district. I mean, pick anyone. Is there any way that we can charge that ongoing maintenance when people are actually working in TIF districts? I know we can pay for stormwater drainage issues out of the TIF money. Can we maybe allocate some, not full time, but some of those hours coming out of TIF proceeds versus, in this case, stormwater drainage fees?
Not usually, because those tip dollars are supposed to, like, drainage projects are improving the district itself, which will increase the tax, the tax base of the district, which is what it's supposed to be doing. So ongoing maintenance and paying for salaries and things like that is not typically what you would pay for out of a TIF district, because it's supposed to enhance the TIF.
Yeah, but when we open up ditches and replace pipes that's crashed, you know, where some of these pipes have collapsed and creating problems in a TIF district. Obviously, if you reduce flooding, you help the economics of the district.
Right. So we're paying for like huge drainage projects, but not necessarily the maintenance of those ditches and pipes in the district. The construction, right?
So replacing a crushed pipe with a new pipe, that's maintenance? I mean, I think it's a gray area of improvements is what I mean.
That would be a gray area, but for I think our employees that are maintaining ditches and things like that, I don't think that's something that we can use TIF dollars for. Maybe a pipe replacement, but it's usually larger projects that actually enhance the district and increase the tax base.
Well, just in case, can we maybe go back and reread and pull up the magnifying glass of that?
I'll double check.
I remember some years ago when we, because these were hospitality monies, when a tax increase in Tecklenburg was suggested just during the Riley administration, and of course we didn't want to raise taxes, and then obviously if we were going to hire more police officers, the ones that were in the entertainment district are basically areas where hospitality monies, you know, generate to help pay for that. And I think it was maybe eight policemen that.
Yeah, we do that. We pay that with municipal.
Yeah, but prior to that, they wasn't doing it. You know, we actually would increase the property taxes to do it, and we could take it out of other funds. I'm just wondering if this may kind of fall in that category, and we drill down the pencil a little bit more. But anyway,
I'll double check, Councilman Waring, but I don't think you can use TIF dollars for that. But I'll double check.
Okay, thank you.
Just real quick on.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Carol.
I was just going to follow on. I mean, what we're looking at today was general funds, and we're really not talking about stormwater funds anyway, in terms of where the majority of the maintenance is paid out of, correct?
Yeah, we haven't brought you the stormwater budget. We're gonna, on the 29th when we meet, we'll bring you the stormwater budget.
Well, you know, I turned 65, so I got to throw this stuff out when I can remember it.
I think you're just using them as an example, but it could be
I was
as well. Right.
Join the club.
That's right.
You know, I was just going to say that, piggyback on Keith's point there. I know that Chip was going to look into, you know, the parameters of TIF funding as it relates to the smokestacks. So just in the interest of not duplicating work and reinventing the wheel, perhaps, you know, some of this work is already underway, because I do, frankly, I think that's just an important piece of information for us all to know for a variety of reasons, what's in and what's out. Like I know, for example, with impact fees, you know, we don't really do too much of that in the city of Charleston, but like you can't spend impact fees on maintenance. It's got to all be for capital expansion improvements. And I just am curious to see what the TIF statutes have to say about these issues, because I think this is going to be a recurring issue, and it would just be good to have like some sort of rules of the road for what's in and what's out on TIFs. You know, not just for budget, not just for smokestacks, but, you know, in the coming years. I think that Councilmember Waring's on to a good idea on this one.
Absolutely. Okay. We'll drill down on that one, on that question. Make sure we're clear on it. All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Take the deal, Nancy.
What's that?
Take the deal, Nancy. We got a saying in the plaintiff's bar here in Charleston: pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. 1.8 trillion. I'm settling that case at 1.8. That's just me.
I don't think state and local is not really in it though, council member. So that could be.
Oh, really? I'm not up to the
local
latest on it. It's not in that at all.
It's in
Well,
there. It's
not
in
to
there.
the extent.
It's just less than the 2.2 trillion. It's in
Not
there.
to the
At,
extent.
it's in there at 300 million as opposed to 500 million. 300 billion as opposed to 500 billion.
Sometimes you need to know when to walk out the casino. That's all I got to say.
That's true.
All
And
right.
I'll just
Thank
mention one thing, just for your knowledge. So I met with the rating agencies last week for the IPRB bond that we're doing, and I should have draft reports shortly, so we'll know what our ratings will be. I should get something from Moody's in the morning, so keep your fingers crossed for that.
Absolutely. All right, anything else? Well, thank y'all again, and we'll see you next time. It won't be
Okay.
long, I know. All right, thanks, everybody.